What if you could grow bigger, better potatoes without digging, hilling or earthing up, and without sacrificing precious garden space? Well, that's what growing in buckets or containers offers, and it's actually easier, more flexible, and potentially even more productive than growing in the ground. In this video, I'll show you how to grow potatoes in buckets or pots like this, how to avoid those tiny disappointing harvests, you know, those marble-sized spuds, we've all had them, and why, once you try this method, you may never go back to growing potatoes in the ground again. Potatoes are one of the most valuable and really enjoyable crops you can possibly grow, but they can be a little bit demanding. There's the digging, the precious space that they occupy, and of course the peril of accidentally stabbing potatoes when you come to dig them up and harvest them. Containers of any kind offer a much easier way to grow potatoes, whether you've got a full-on garden or just a balcony. So let's take a look at what we'll be planting into today. And we'll be using good-sized buckets like this or containers like this, because when it comes to growing spuds in containers, size really does matter. In fact, it's probably one of the biggest influences on getting decent-sized tubers. Too small and your potato plants will be really struggling. They won't have enough room to properly grow, and they will dry out a lot quicker, which isn't great news for a very thirsty crop. A container this size is actually 30 litres. That might seem quite big, but by growing in a chunky old container like this, we're going to get much healthier plants, bigger potatoes, and it'll be far easier as well. And once you see just how easy it is to grow potatoes in containers, you may just be sneaking them in here and there throughout the garden into just about any available nook and cranny. And if I flip the container over, you can see here it's got lots and lots of drainage holes. That's really important because while potatoes do like a nice, moist growing environment, they don't like it really soggy because that could cause the roots and the tubers to rot. Now, I love growing potatoes in containers because it avoids tearing at the fragile fabric of your soil, which you've built up beautifully with all that lovely compost and organic matter over the years. Growing in containers avoids that, but we need to choose our growing medium with care because potatoes are hungry feeders. For my mix, I am starting afresh, beginning with this beautiful garden-made compost, which will be full of nutrients, and that's going to form half of our mix. And then in goes roughly 1/4 by volume of this stuff, which is coconut fibre or coir. Now, this lovely stuff here has got a beautiful fibrous texture which will help with that all-important drainage. And then 1/4 by volume of fresh all-purpose potting mix. If you're on a bit of a budget, by the way, you could just use all-purpose potting mix that's had a previous crop grown in it, mixed 50-50 with garden-made compost, which will add all of the nutrients. It's a great way of reusing old mix, and of course it will cost you nothing at all. Try to avoid really woody materials though, because potatoes are much more preferable of rich, organic, moisture retentive growing medium, and woody materials just haven't got that richness and tend to drain out a bit too quickly. Now, one thing we do need to add now is some organic fertilizer, and I'm using my go-to of blood, fish and bone meal. Now, there are vegan alternatives to this available. This stuff is affordable and released relatively slowly, supporting plants for longer. It will ensure my potatoes have all of the nutrients they need to swell those beautiful tubers and get a satisfying harvest. Growing potatoes in containers saves valuable bed space, so rather than filling up all that space with potatoes, you could be growing something else instead, which is really valuable when space is tight. Now, you could grow containers on patios, along paths, or just as I do, just at the edge of the veg garden. Right, I think it's time to plant, don't you? And planting couldn't be simpler. So to start with, I'm going to fill my container with 1/3 of our mix here, or 1/3 deep even. I've already added that blood, fish and bone meal, but just to really supercharge growth, I'm going to go in now with a small handful of purpose-sold organic potato fertiliser, scattered in and then just lightly frisked into the top couple of inches there. Next up, it's time for our seed potatoes. and we're going to plant these with the shoots facing upwards. I'm planting a first early or early season variety, and these guys tend to form their tubers more in a single layer. So because of that, I'm actually going to plant 2 sets of 2, one here and then one up here. So let's get our first 2 in like that and then cover them over. And there we go, I've filled the container so it's up to about 2/3 full now. And then for our next set of spuds, I'm just going to go in with another little handful of our organic potato fertiliser and tickle that in. And now it's time for the second set of our 2 seed potatoes. Now these need to go in at right angles or 90 degrees offset from the first 2 so they don't grow into each other, and you can use the handles here as a kind of handy little guide to get that right, and then simply cover them up and fill to the top. So there are my early season potatoes all potted up and ready to go. Now these types of potatoes are well worth growing for their sheer speed and therefore earlier harvests. Let me bring one that I planted up at the end of winter, and it's mid-spring now, and you can see it's already grown on beautifully, and that's with some quite cold weather. This will double, triple in size over the next few weeks. These early season salad style potatoes are absolutely true riches indeed, biting into that tender skin that kind of pops open in the mouth and then reveals the smooth, creamy flesh below. Absolutely delicious. So with our early season potatoes done, now let me show you how I plant a main crop or late season potato. Now these are the potatoes that will form the bulk of my harvest to store over winter, and these are beautiful for roasting, mashing and all sorts of good stuff during those colder months. Main crop or late season potatoes have a much longer growing period and often aren't harvested until the very end of summer. Now this makes them more susceptible to late blight or potato blight. This is an awful fungal disease that strikes in sort of warm, wet weather. It can turn foliage to mush and collapse it all and even rot down the tubers. So one way to avoid that is to plant blight resistant varieties, and today I'm going to be planting a variety called Sarpo Myra, and there are other blight resistant varieties available too. Main crop potatoes tend to produce more tubers per plant, and they are often quite a bit bigger. So for that reason, in these containers I'm just going to plant 2 seed potatoes, and that is it. So I've frisked in my potato fertiliser into the bottom few inches. I've got it 1/3 full with our potting mix, and then in go our potatoes, and then it's simply a question of filling right the way up to the top, leaving maybe about 1 inch or so of headroom at the top to make watering a bit easier. And that's it, job done, nice and easy. Planting into containers like this removes the need for any digging, hilling or earthing up, because we are filling the containers in one go right at the start. Traditionally, potatoes are grown in trenches, then soil is gradually pulled up around the stems to form ridges as they grow. This reduces the risk of potatoes making their way to the surface and turning green in the sunlight, which makes them inedible. But with containers, everything is done at planting time. No repeated digging or filling, just plant them up and let them get on with it. Brilliant. Okay, so with our containers planted, all we need to do now is just give them a really good watering to settle them all in. I could absolutely leave it at that, but to finish things off, I'm going to add a bit of a mulch on top. Now this could be hay like here, or straw. I'm going to use grass clippings for these 2 containers here, which are my main crops, just so I know which is which. Now this little bit of mulch at the top here will not only keep any weeds down and retain the moisture a bit longer, it will also act as a bit of insulation. So early on in the season that could mean protection from chilly nights, say, and then as summer progresses, a bit of shade and coolness from the heat of the sun. Container potatoes can of course be moved to wherever you want them. They are super flexible like that. Right at the start of the season, that means that your container potatoes can be started off under cover or even indoors to get a really good head start, and then brought out once it's a little bit warmer. And you can always bring them back under cover again should a frost threaten. And you can always move your pots about, rearrange them as and when you need to. Once the potatoes are done, you can reuse this pot to grow other things, potentially getting 2 crops from the same container in the same season. And you can even reuse this mix by just adding in a bit more organic fertilizer, mixing it all up, ready for your second crop. One of the things that often or sometimes affects container potatoes is slugs. They can kind of get in from the bottom, but simply raising your pots up or buckets onto sort of pot feet or bricks or even an old pallet like that would make it harder for the slugs to get in, because they come in from the bottom. They don't fly in, obviously. Another thing you can do to help to reduce the slug problem is to water in the morning, so the top area has a chance to dry off before the cool of the evening. The dry mulch on top will help to discourage slugs, and of course just go around every now and then and check and pick off any slugs that you do happen to come across. So we've, dear oh dear, we've set our potatoes up for success with some lovely organic fertiliser and a really wholesome growing medium. The other tip to real success is watering, and this is where some gardeners can falter. During peak growing season, potatoes will need quite a lot of water, especially if it's sunny, windy and indeed warm. Now, I always like to check first by just sticking a finger in, down to the kind of second knuckle, and if it comes out dry, well, it's time to water. Potatoes need consistent moisture for trouble-free tuber development. Now, what I like to do is water nice and deeply until I can see water coming out of the drainage holes at the bottom. I'll then go away, water something else, and then come back after a few minutes to water again, just to make sure it's consistently and evenly moist throughout. Good nutrition, plentiful watering so potatoes are never left wanting, and of course a decent sized container or bucket are my golden rules to achieving decent sized spuds and not piddly little marble sized ones. But my other tip for producing the very best harvest is to remove any flowers. Now, the potato flowers are in their own rights quite pretty, but they take energy to produce. And once they are pollinated, they will produce seeds, which also takes energy. So remove all of those flowers to redirect the plant's energy into tuber formation, ensuring a bigger harvest. Potatoes can get a bit top heavy with all of that lush leafy foliage, especially after a bout of heavy rain or wind, for example. So to stop them flopping over, if that is a problem, isn't really for me, but if it is, you can just thrust in some canes like this and then run some horizontal string just to pen all the foliage in and keep it upright. Harvesting is absolutely the very best part about growing potatoes in containers. Instead of digging about, trying to fish out every last potato, hoping you don't miss anything, simply cut the foliage right back, then tip the entire container out onto a tarp to gather up all of the spuds in one go. It's quick, easy, and ensures not a single potato is missed. And of course, it's immensely satisfying. There's no need to enjoy everything at once though. While early season spuds are best harvested promptly, late season or main crop potatoes can be harvested as and when. So in containers, that can simply mean cutting back the foliage and then moving them somewhere cool, dry, undercover, out of the rain, just to store exactly as they are, to then bring out and tip out as and when they are needed. This storing in containers works really well if your potatoes haven't been affected by slugs, but if it has been a sluggy season, then play it safe by gathering up all of the potatoes in one go and then storing them separately in sacks. Now, to do that, just tip out all of the buckets and lay the potatoes out in the wind and sun to dry off for a few hours first. This vital curing step toughens the skins up, improving storage life. Then once they're dried off, they can be gently placed into breathable sacks or nets to hang up and store in a cool, dark and dry place, ideally at around 45 to 50 Fahrenheit or 7 to 10 Celsius, or as close to that as you can. And of course, somewhere dry and dark is crucial. And store them away from any fruits you've also got in store, as fruits can emit ethylene gas, which will drastically reduce the storage life of your spuds. If you're clever, you could be enjoying potatoes from early summer from potatoes that were planted at the end of winter, right through to the following spring using your main crop spuds that you've carefully stored. Now there's also the delicious prospect of beautiful salad potatoes lifted at the end of autumn from potatoes you planted in late summer. And if you would like to know more about that, then do click onto the video that will pop up at the end of this one. Growing potatoes in containers really is one of the smartest ways to grow this very rewarding crop. And here they are now added to my garden plan. There they are. And if you would like to try this garden planner, then please do. It's free to try using our 7-day trial. Just hop on over here next to give it a go. And I will catch you next time.